Welcome everyone, you're listening to Nephology, the podcast dedicated to crypto, accounting, business, finance and much, much more. I'm Joe David, the founder of Nephos Group in Minor. Please note that all conversations recorded are professional opinions, and if you'd like to know more or gain support, please reach out to the team directly. Now on to the next episode. Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Nephology podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Dan Ross today from Superscript. Dan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, Joe. Thank you.
Good. How was your journey in today? All good?
Not bad at all. And you got a lovely studio, so I'm feeling particularly relaxed.
I can't claim it to be mine, but it would be nice. It'd be nice if this was my office all day.
Yeah, this is a nice way to work. I'm kind of jealous you're here the whole day.
Yeah. So, thanks for coming. It's been probably a bit of a long time coming, actually. We've definitely been wanting and needing to do this for a while, and I'm really excited to chat to you about the insurance market and crypto as well, and how those two things align. Similarly to us, we're trying to make the market much more accessible for everybody. Like you said, crypto businesses are businesses as well, right? And they need supporting. So I'm really excited. So yeah, do you want to start giving us a little bit about you? Where you came from, your role at Superscript, and how you got into crypto.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Dan. I'm currently an underwriter at an insurance broker, Superscript. I've been in insurance about 8 years now. Formerly, I started in what we call cyber underwriting, which is data breaches, hacking, that kind of thing. Trying to look for a career and a nice way to work, and I stumbled upon insurance on Lloyd's of London, and it's very old school way of doing stuff, and I thought this is an amazing place to be. So with that kind of, I came with a bit of a technology background and thought I wanted to apply that to underwriting and insurance, and it wasn't long at all before the first kind of crypto business came across the desk, and I've been in crypto by that point for probably about 3 or 4 years. Knew a few of the big names, but this was 2017.
Okay.
And Dapper Labs, the creator of CryptoKitties, comes across, and no one knew what this was. No one even knew what NFTs were. They weren't being spoken about at all. But suddenly I knew what this business did, and no one else in my company did. So I thought, okay, that's my niche. That's what I really want to do. And it's been a long slog for pretty much everyone in the current Superscript team to get to where we are now. But we've individually been trying to push crypto in insurance, not for the sake of it, to insure crypto businesses as legitimate businesses for a long time now. And it's coming together at Superscript as a team, and all those people that are trying to do it being in one place, that's kind of really made it happen for us. So Superscript is a Lloyd's of London insurance broker and insurtech. It's the first insurtech to be registered as a Lloyd's of London broker, which meant that although we're a tech-based company, we now have access to the global insurance market. The main part of the business is what we call a quote and bind insurance website. So if you're a builder, you're a plumber, you've got some offices, you're a hairdresser, you can go onto our website, you can buy monthly insurance for £10-15 a month and just be done with it. It's nice and easy. The rest of the business, though, is very traditional Lloyd's insurance businesses. And within that, we have a team of 5 people, of which I'm part of, and we solely focus on Web3, blockchain and crypto businesses globally across the whole ecosystem. Very proud to be part of that team. It's now the largest broking team dedicated to Web3 in the world, and we're planning to grow a lot more this year. So certainly growing significantly. Apologies.
No worries. And you said as a firm, how many staff? 100?
Yeah, 140 now, coming up to 150. Opened up an office in Rotterdam to have kind of EU play, and that's grown significantly. So yeah, we're now based in London, based in Rotterdam, and I think there is future plans to kind of look to the rest of the world and see where Superscript can make their mark. But it's a heavily tech-based company with the insurance kind of put on the top of it.
And for those that don't know what some of these words mean. For example, what could you just maybe give people, what is an underwriter? What's your role as an underwriter? But also, what does it mean to be a Lloyd's of London insurance broker? Maybe just explain a little bit about what those things mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So those titles don't mean anything to anyone if you're not inside insurance. But so there's insurance is very simple, and it's one of the oldest kind of ongoing finance structures. That's still pretty much the same as it was when it started, and most people will be very familiar intuitively with how insurance works because they buy car insurance, they buy house insurance. So what it is there is a person, the insurer, who has a big pot of money that's willing to invest that money essentially in the promise of if you as a company has a problem, then we will be there to help you protect yourselves. And that insurer essentially takes the money from the customer and gives them the certificate to say, if something happens, I'll pay. But in the middle, there has to be someone working for the customer and being able to talk to the underwriters as best as possible. And that's where an insurance broker comes in. And typically insurance brokers might be seen as kind of an unnecessary middleman or not providing a lot of value. And that might be the case for many companies in the insurance market. Definitely not the case at Superscript. We, as an insurance broker, are there to become experts in the businesses that we're representing, but also, of course, be experts in insurance itself. So what you end up having in insurance, whether you're on the underwriting side as an insurer, on the broking side, or as some other part, you tend to have one or two kind of specialisms. So you'll tend to have a specialism in, let's say, a particular type of insurance. Let's say, like we were saying before, cyber insurance. It's not easy for someone that insures properties to come to cyber insurance and start. So they kind of have to have a niche. And within that, they also kind of need to have a niche outside of insurance. So it's all well and good being able to place cyber insurance, but if you don't know, for example, cloud infrastructure well, or if you don't know about encryption and security well, then you probably don't have a niche that's going to be directly applicable.
Sorry, but so in your role then, are you kind of a gatekeeper, might be the wrong word, but a kind of that person that business that sits in the middle of the customer and and like you say, this person or company that's providing this pot of money to pay out on these policies if needed. Are you kind of there to make sure that what they're insuring is a legitimate kind of insurable business type thing, or
a bit of both? So probably easier for me to talk about it on the crypto side a lot more. Okay. So what we do is try to become as expert as we can in the business that we're representing to really understand the nuance of what we're doing. Then our next job is to get all of that nuanced information, however specialized it is, to underwriters who might not have had the time or opportunity to become specialized in crypto and blockchain themselves. So what we end up doing is not dumbing it down by any means, but translating in a way that makes sense, giving comparisons. For the end result is not to just get insurance for the customer, is to, as you mentioned, get insurance that works for the customer, is going to pay out when the customer is in genuine distress. Yeah. And the problem with specialized products like crypto previously is businesses know they need insurance, but don't necessarily know what crypto insurance should look like for them. And there are plenty of brokers out there just willing to sell them general insurance. And when it's come to fruition and they actually needed that safety net and help, it hasn't helped them at all. And they've ended up paying a reasonable amount of money, if not a lot of money, for a product that was never going to help them in the first place. So this conversation that we have with the client, going back to the underwriter, is all around making sure that the end product is exactly what the customer needs. Okay. And that's why it becomes difficult in crypto and blockchain, because although it's kind of one sector, you've got on-chain businesses, you've got completely decentralized DAOs, you have what we would call the traditional businesses just using Web3 technologies. There's every single one of them really needs to be taken as an individual, and that's where we come in with our expertise each and every time to be able to tell underwriters what they are insuring.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So in a way, you're supporting those underwriters because they can't know everything.
Exactly.
So you're taking a specialism so that you can support them, so they know what they're underwriting and therefore much better informed decision making.
Exactly. And crypto is still nascent. It's still nascent in insurance. And these underwriters aren't looking to underwrite crypto all day long. They have 95% of the rest of their business is very traditional, and it's profitable, and it doesn't take them any time to learn. So for them to really step out and take the time to learn our niche for the sole purpose of really nurturing and protecting that industry rather than just making a quick buck, they've really got to go out of their way. So they're few and far between, but that is our job, to make that as easy as possible for them.
Makes sense.
We want to be their in-house experts essentially for them.
And I guess then moving on to the market for insurance, what is the market looking like at the moment? How how, I was going to say stable, maybe that's not the right word, but how is the market at the moment in general insurance, but then also specifically around the crypto products that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So general insurance, it's a very slow-moving industry. The things we talk about, the dangers, tend to persist year after year, if not decade after decade at this point. At the moment, of course, it's global warming, it's forest fires, it's all these essentially land-based risks that really dominate insurance in general. Both, so it's properties, you're looking at things like earthquakes, but you also, the other massive part of insurance is marine and cargo.
Okay, yeah.
So boats, ships, and all the stuff on top of them. Between those two things, those make up a considerable amount of the world's insurance. And on top of that, just for a bit of information, there's something called reinsurance, which is insurance for insurance. And that's even bigger than insurance. Surprisingly, it's a huge industry, but that's a completely sidetrack. So insurance, generally the market is a very stable one. There will be particular types of insurance that fluctuate massively, but it's this global kind of moving organism that just persists and is always there, and the institutions of insurance are there year after year, and that's what we want. If I came to you and said, oh, it's been a rough year for insurance, the world wouldn't be as stable as it
for
is,
sure,
thankfully. Yeah. So insurance itself, pretty stable, nothing too crazy there. Insurance for crypto and blockchain and Web3 businesses. Now, it probably is a good thing we kind of put off the podcast to a bit longer, because like I said, we've been doing this since 2017-18 and really trying to push it along as individuals and with Lloyds and with individual underwriters. But it seems to be in the last 12 months now, 18 months, something happened, and I don't know what it is, but suddenly all these underwriters that didn't care or weren't interested were. And suddenly traditional insurers who had CEOs who said never even look at it
Right.
And we've now got, it used to be you had one or two options of who you could go for real Web3 genuine products. And I say that because any broker could go to any underwriter in the world and ask for any product, but it's not the right one. So I'm just talking about true products that we need. People are really coming along, and I would say that's partly because of a bit more legitimization in the news and in information that's out there. But what I really would say is it's the hard slog of the people in my team going out and educating these companies and underwriters as a group. So on my team's a man called Ben Davis, who runs the crypto team at Superscript. And he is endlessly presenting introductions to blockchain and crypto, which we've been doing for the last 6-7 years. Like, when was your first introduction to crypto? Can you remember how long ago that was?
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. But he's still doing it week after week, and that's really what it takes to bring these
and
people
those
along.
Introductions that he's doing, where are they to? Like, who is he talking to?
Underwriters.
Okay.
Getting the people that can put pen to paper in the room to talk to them.
Okay.
And the reception's been huge, and it's been obviously it's quite a jump for any business to start looking at an unregulated financial instrument. But instead of them going, it's not really for us, or it's too much red tape, or we're not really sure, they've gone, we get it enough, and we seem to trust you. Send something over. We'll take a look, and we'll see what it means for us. And the next thing you know, 2, 3, 10, 20, and suddenly they've got a book of crypto businesses
Yeah.
and some expertise.
And I guess it's one of those things, once you start doing it, you start to understand it more. Therefore, you start to do more of it. And then that whole thing snowballs a bit then, doesn't it? And you get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And in terms of crypto specific products, if you're a crypto business, in one sense, it doesn't matter what legal entity or legal form as such that you take, right? There's an element of things that you probably need. You probably need basic things like employer's liability and, public liability if you've got public space and things, all those different bits and pieces that any old business would need.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say Web3 specific products, like what exactly do you mean? Like if a Web3 business is listening to that, what sort of things should they be thinking about that are outside? If they're talking to their traditional broker, they're probably not telling them about.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so it's kind of two areas, and going back to what we were saying before is there are different types of insurance, and some of those, like you said, are just generic for any company, but some are insurances that have been around for a long time, but they need some tweaking and some contextualizing in the context of this new business. So going back to, let's say the most traditional ones is directors and officers, which protects, as it says on the tin, directors and the officers of the business in case they get sued. Professional indemnity, often called errors and omissions, which is you have a product, you have a service, you have a contract with your clients, and if you break that contract, then that's what the PI policy is for. You have, for example, cyber, again, what we said, data breaches and stuff. All of these things generally kind of can be applied to crypto businesses, but we need them to really specifically apply to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do in the end. So, for example, directors and officers. Directors and officers is normally a pretty straightforward thing. You have a list of the directors and officers, maybe their CVs, you have a cap table, you have some information about the board. It's pretty straightforward. It's when, for example, the directors and officers might be, and again, in crypto, we never call them directors and officers, do we? So it's kind of hard to say who's in charge and who's not. But let's say we've got a decentralized exchange, and we do have people working for a business that's building that, but maybe the leader of that business doesn't call themselves a CEO or something. They've got some goofy meme title, right? Or
I can think of one right now, but anyway.
I can think, yeah, we're probably thinking the same one. But there's, and it might be that those people aren't all in an office and they are completely separate jurisdictions. And let's say they're dealing with stuff that's open source rather than closed source. All these little nuances as to what the directors and officers of that business actually mean in the context of crypto and blockchain might not gel well with traditional things. So if we look at any sort of like a decentralized exchange that has a DAO or a foundation structured next to it, and that's kind of fluidly run by a group of people who get assigned votes, but really these votes are actually crucial to how the business is being run. And in that case, are the directors and officers just enacting a group decision, or are they being malicious themselves? Like, it's a very ambiguous thing when you're bringing in kind of new tech and new concepts to these old insurances. And
so on that then, if I'm a Web3 business and I go to my traditional broker and I ask for directors and officers because I've run a fintech or a traditional TradFi business before, and I know in inverted commas that I need that policy in place, and the broker says yeah no problem, I'll get you some directors and officers, and they put it in place and I pay my premiums, and then I need to claim. What happens then?
So
obviously, I'm being very specific there. So obviously the answer needs to be very generalized in the response. But what are we saying that the payout is going to be a challenge, or
and this is where the entire game is won and lost by the broker you choose. So you can get any broker, they can get you any insurance. That's no problem. It's whether themselves they understand the interpretation of what that insurance means for your business. And like I said, it could pay out. And so directors and officers is actually a pretty good example, because more often than not, it's going to pay out. There's nothing too crypto-y about it. until you get into the SEC pulling in decentralized exchanges, that kind of thing. That's very hard to insure. But generally speaking, if these are kind of traditional businesses at face value, like there are people working there, they get paid, all that kind of stuff, then let's say, D&O might be a more generic, it will pay out. Maybe they don't need anything specific to it. Let's move on to the professional indemnity and errors and omissions. Let's say, so previously, if you had a piece of data that was essential to your customer and you'd lost it and now it prevented you from doing business or whatever, would put them out of pocket, there would be some cost to kind of reinstate that and then maybe reimburse a client and then go ahead business as usual. That can be paid out by a typical cyber policy because you've got data and you've got rid of it. Let's turn to private keys, which is data, but it's not necessarily recoverable by a third party. It's open source software, so there's no one to go sue if something's done wrong, and it's it can be not well defined in the context of traditional insurance. So if I come to you, Joe, and you are holding, you're custodying my assets with the private key, and you lose that private key, is that a breach of the contract you've done with me and should hit your professional indemnity policy? Or is it that you destroyed some data and it should hit the cyber policy?
Yeah, okay.
And you're going to get two underwriters at different companies with two different policies going, I think they should pay, I think they should pay. And eventually, you're just going to get a terrible service. You're not going to be able to really get to what you want, which is to help your client, not to get paid out, not to deal with the admin. It's just going to hold that up. So
okay.
We always say this. I don't mind what broker you go to, but if you're a Web3 and crypto business and your broker isn't talking to you about your business with the same language and passion you are, and if your broker isn't, and if you cannot see your broker almost visually trying to work out how your specific businesses fits within traditional insurance and then can replay that to you, jump, you got the wrong broker. They're going to cost you a lot of money. You need to be with the people who are talking your language, and that's the right indicator that you've got the right place.
And that's really, an interesting point. And part of the reason why, we work very closely with you guys, and part of the reason for that is you talk the same language, and that's exactly what we say in our industry is that, if you're talking to your accountant or professional advisor and they don't fully understand the market you're in, they don't fully understand, and like you say, their brain isn't turning when you start talking about the products and the things like that, then they're probably not the right person for you. They're probably not going to give you the best advice. And it's the same for us. We obviously have PI as a firm, and we are obviously our PI is able to pay out based on if we give wrong advice or something like that, and it costs the client for tax or something like that. But if we don't know what we're talking about, our insurance firm is going to say, well, hang on a second, guys, you're selling a product you don't know. So how can you possibly expect to get it right if you don't know what you're selling? So we have had to demonstrate to our PI insurance that we actually know what we're talking about, because the risk is higher if we don't. So, you're absolutely right. It's all very well, it's a bit like, having car insurance, but not telling them that you were banned, for example.
Exactly.
There's no point in having it because, it's probably a bad example, but my point, like if you don't disclose all the information, or if you don't give as much as you should, then actually you might get a cheaper policy, or you might get this, that and the other, but actually it's worth nothing because you can't do anything with it at the end when you actually need to. So what's the point in even paying the premiums in the first place? Absolutely.
And there is a scale here of, are they so crypto that they need something bespoke?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or should we just say that they just happen to be in the kind of remit? And more often than not, actually, we can kind of go down the route of, actually, let's talk to the underwriter about how traditional they are. And that's really what gets stuff over the line a lot of the time. But there's those products. And then we were saying there are more specific crypto and blockchain products. And in that case, you're going to know you're with the right broker, because simply you're just not going to hear about these products from other people. Some of the ones we've launched over the last 6 months at Superscript are probably biggest one was North American mining line slip. So for Bitcoin miners, and their massive data facilities powered by all sorts of weird and wonderful ways. It's been really interesting to learn about, but it's now Superscript are running the first Lloyd's of London facility basically for these massive companies to come and get their property insured, both on the outside and on the internal computers.
And so we're talking about the miners themselves there as well.
Yes, I believe so. I think at the moment this is mostly around the overall property.
Yeah.
But the market is definitely opening up for insurance.
And that is the plan ultimately, is to try and, like you say, start small, but you know what I mean by that, start very overarching, and then be able to try and break that down into individual, because that could be the case, right? You've got a huge facility, you've got 1,000 miners in this facility, and 2 break, for example. If you can't insure those, that's a major issue for a large organization. So that is definitely a product that people are gonna need. If you've only got one machine in a facility and you can insure the facility, then you might be okay with that. But if you've got 1,000 or something, it's going to be a challenge.
It's so much thought and effort goes into it, and there is obviously lots of industry best practices with data centers. We're very well versed at them, but there are, because you have specific miners, ASIC miners for Bitcoin, they kind of do have their own features that are built for them. So the one I'm thinking of is, everywhere else is air cooled, but a lot of people want to immersion cool in liquid their Bitcoin miners. Now, these are all things that prevent fires, make it a lot more efficient. It's all well and great. And again, I know nothing about property. I was finding this out as it's coming along. But one of the claims that has come through in the market, not with us, is a miner who has all these awesome stuff and all this piping under the ground and using thermal energy, all these kind of things. One day, leaving the facility, they forgot to lock the door, and the place froze inside.
Oh my God.
And it just destroyed everything.
Wow.
And I don't even think it was the case where everything inside was frozen. I think it was something like it froze a pipe near the door, and in fact that pipe was enough to kind of stop
down the
thing.
whole.
Yeah. And huge payout for such a small consideration. So again, it's why we have insurance. We worry about the things we worry about, but in the end of the day, it's the things that we forget to worry about that get you. And that's why the safety net's there.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And then, we briefly touched on Lloyd's of London, but you mentioned before we came on air, you guys have got a really good relationship with the, I guess, global insurance market. And so how is that kind of approach? And I don't know anybody at Lloyd's of London or anything like that, but I imagine it to be a fairly traditional business. I imagine it to be fairly traditional people that have known insurance for years and years and years and years and years. How has the approach been, and how's their, they've obviously taken your views on it and they've obviously been happy to look at it. So, but how has that been? Has it been a positive? You've done it, so it must have been positive, but yeah, how's that been?
Yeah, a slog, no doubt. It's taken many years and lots of effort from different people. It's still a very traditional industry, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It has its awful points, don't get me wrong. It's in finance, it is the slowest developing industry by far in terms of adopting technology, best practices within big businesses, all that kind of innovation. When I started, people were saying we're 15 years behind banking. I would say we'd be lucky to say we're closer to 10 years by now. It's really not that far. Okay. However, and this is kind of where my job comes in at Superscript, because as I said, we're an insurance broker, and traditionally an underwriter never works in an insurance broker. It's a bit of a weird position, but my job is essentially to assist my team in kind of trying to take the whole thing to the next level, because they are so heavily focused on day-to-day broking and bringing new people on board that someone does need to have that kind of position just to step back and say, how do we make this better? And in that sense, my job, I see it as trying to build the bridge between Web3, crypto, blockchain, and traditional insurance. And in that case, when we're 10 years behind banking, and banking is currently onboarding crypto, then I really feel like we're leapfrogging all of the 10 years of innovation and cloud infrastructure and all of these buzzwords that kind of have gone by already, and where as a business are starting to make ourselves Web3 native. And so that's my job. I'm here to make Superscript a Web3 native business.
And this might be an unfair comparison, but is it fair to say that, you know, insurance brokers are, in inverted commas, the salespeople, and your role is to make sure that the salespeople aren't selling the wrong thing, because that's not fair, but are selling, like, they've got, like, it'd be like us, for example, having you know, I don't know, HMRC, for example, having a HMRC or an ex-HMRC inspector working for us, and every time, well, not every time, but a lot of when there's some cases that are a little bit more you know, challenging, we would get that person to review it and see how it is and say, do you know what, when this goes to HMRC, I can't say they definitely won't, you know, do this, that, or the other, but from what I've seen, you know, this should tick this box, and this box. Is it a kind of similar thing to that? Would you say, in that you're trying to help make sure that the brokers are putting decent deals to, you know, Lloyd's of London and people like that are actually insuring this stuff?
So no, not really. And what I would say is I bring a far more of a technical background and understand, both on the tech and in some cases the underwriting. But the boys on my team, and there's five of us now, and Lloyd's of London, and the reason why it's so special is it is still very, very heavily baked in face-to-face relationships. Right. And so they have to deal with, each themselves have their own set of underwriters that they deal with, who have their own personal relationships, and bring them along. I'm here to make sure that they're not having to learn a completely new abstract technology idea when they've got 10 other clients to deal with. Send that over to me. I know what it is. Give me 20 minutes. I'll do a write-up for you and for the client and for the underwriter. Go away and take that. And day to day, that's kind of what I bring. Yeah. The other side of it at Superscript is, like I said, making us Web3 native, so giving capabilities for the team to do what they do but better. Yeah. So the clearest one is accepting cryptocurrencies. Yeah. For any business, it's no easy feat to get. It's easy to set up. It's not easy to get through the red tape at all. But we finally got there, and it's phenomenal. It's exactly what we hoped it would be. And we're finally there. So it was normally in insurance, and I used to be in a role called credit control, which is who owes what money to insurers, and it's a nightmare.
I'm sure
it is the biggest nightmare. And so I really feel for anyone in finance, especially now I'm at the underwriting stage. I know that a little bit of work I do means a lot of work for a lot of other people, and I very much appreciate that now. But it's our finance team are excellent, but again, they've had to come on this Web3 crypto journey with us as well if we want to accept crypto, and it almost feels like it's too fast. Okay. So the fact that it doesn't take a couple of days for an IBAN to like get transferred from a different country, and then us getting invoices from so as a broker, we take in all the money and then we split it out to the people that are supposed to have
that need it.
Yeah. And in that case, it takes weeks, sometimes months, and sometimes many months, if not at all, to get premium out of customers.
Right. Yeah.
Because insurance is not cheap at the size we're looking at. It's tens of thousands, often hundreds of thousands. So it's not a small amount of money for any business, and it's weeks to settle. It takes ages for everyone to come up with the same answers. With this crypto and blockchain thing, fortunately, there are some really innovative insurers that are now accepting crypto as premium payment, which is great. And it means that instead of this weeks-long chase and invoicing and slog, crypto people are really happy to just be given an hour's window, say, can you send us that in the hour? They get it done, of course. It's there in 5 minutes. and I can just send off the rest to the insurer directly without any exchange fees, without any bank transfer fees. And to give you a kind of idea of one we've recently settled, it took a couple of hours. It took a couple of hours to completely settle, and I think the absolute total cost to us completely, including FX exchanges to transfer stuff back into fiat, it was £19 and instantly settled.
Yeah, that's insane.
There's nothing that's going to beat that in insurance. So trying to, again, leapfrog the really old school ways of doing stuff to bring in these tools to make everyone's life a lot easier is what I'm focused on at the moment.
And like you say, you know, balancing those ledgers, when you've got two, opaque's the word, I think, isn't it, where it's not transparent, you know, two very opaque systems. So you can't see their ledger, they can't see your ledger, client can't see anyone's, you know, nobody really knows without asking somebody else what the balances are, etc., etc. With crypto, that's all gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can see exactly what was transferred and when, you know, and whether that money is being held. You know, we were talking earlier about a transaction that I was sending, and client said to me, sent funds, the exchange wasn't showing the funds as hitting yet. I looked on the blockchain and I could see it was pending.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not taking the client's word from it. I'm not taking the exchange's word from it. I'm actually looking for myself, and I can see exactly where it is in the system, you know, how many blocks it's processed through, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it might sound technical and boring, but actually to be able to see the process of that money being moved is insane. And like you say, typically that happens instantaneously. And to be able to settle, and I imagine it's not a small amount that you said that you settled, and it cost you £19. I imagine it was
I think it's about 50k.
Yeah, so it's, you know, that's going to I mean, I think I sent 2k the other day internationally, and it cost me 30 quid.
Yeah,
you know, so even that,
it's something, isn't it?
Yeah. So in terms of accepting premiums, then what do you accept at the moment?
Pretty heavily in stable coins, but you know, if you're crypto native anyway, and you've got a completely different coin, you're going to know how to change it to USDC, fire it over. So that's really not been a problem for us, having to deal with significant different currencies, because everyone understands that stables work well. So let's just use that.
Would you take a BTC or an ETH or?
Yeah, I would. We would have the whole thing would just be to avoid the kind of FX.
Yeah, there'd be a margin on it.
We would just trade it, churn it out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I do really want and see a future where we just have our own multi-sig.
Yeah.
And we do stuff through there. Account abstraction coming along is going to be a big thing, because at the moment we have one account for all the money, which means we have to avoid client funds being mixed, which means if we take in some premium on a wallet, we have to make sure it's zero before we can take in any more.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff that crypto doesn't make it easier for, that we will fix, but you know, it's a far better job than what we were doing with before. Yeah,
for sure. And even that, you know, yes, it's a little bit of a pain, but say you took it into a MetaMask wallet, or you took it into a ledger with, you know, you can create multiple accounts in seconds, like in literal milliseconds. Yeah. So, you know, taking those funds in and splitting, even if you didn't send them out straight away, and splitting them into individual wallets might be a bit of a pain. Totally appreciate. But actually, it's no different. I talk to people sometimes, and I'm like, it's no different to creating a client account and having another client account for this client, one for this client. You know, each one's got to be created anyway. So, yeah, it's there's definitely some things that could be made a bit easier, but I think in the main, it's overall the package it's
pretty good,
much better.
Yeah, it's and it's not like we get a wallet address and we can go, but when we do get given that wallet address by the client and we can see that their funds are there, that's alleviates a lot of trouble.
For sure. And it's funny with crypto people, I don't know if you find this, but if you ask someone to pay you in crypto, they literally do it like that.
Instant.
If you ask someone to pay in fiat, it takes them days, weeks, months, whatever. And I don't know why. I don't know what mentality change there is. But they just seem to do it.
My guess on the insurance side particularly is that they compare it to their normal insurance. So they pay what? A couple of grand for their house insurance, a couple of hundred for their car insurance, and then they get a 5 or 6 figure bill for their company insurance. It's a lot easier to say, can you fire over 3 Bitcoin?
Fair.
And they'll do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a psychology thing. I don't think that's got anything to do with the actual value of the money.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, no, that's fair.
But yeah, it's that whole having clear stuff on the blockchain, seeing transactions go through, it's just this whole area of transparency, and insurance and transparency go together very, very nicely. So the second kind of blockchain native thing we've done for Superscript is to bring certain insurance documents on chain. And insurance documents normally all PDFs. Up until extremely recently, they were almost all entirely printed. And they're crap. They're really bad.
Yeah.
They are almost one of the primary sources of fraud in insurance, saying they have insurance when they don't.
I mean, how easy is it to change a PDF?
Exactly. And they do it all the time, especially Superscript. It's a problem because Superscript's online business is there to be as helpful and as flexible as possible. Now, when we allowed someone to bind insurance, the pay comes out in a couple of days, they get the certificate, they cancel the insurance same day because we allow them to, and the money never comes out, and now they've got a fully fledged certificate. We've had some claims come in, and I've just typed in the code and saying they cancelled that instantly, but we will have complaints from several people who this person's handed the certificate over to, coming to claim from us. So it's as much of a problem in crypto and blockchain because all of these companies that say, exchanges, particularly custodians, who say they have insurance, and when it comes to it, they have something, but it's nowhere near fit for purpose. We have to do something about it. So we wanted to make our policy documents, if they were on chain, to be as live and as dynamic as possible. So we give our clients the option, if you want a really kind of new, live and dynamic certificate or document that you want to give to your client to show how transparent you are and really push that narrative forward, we can do that. But if you just want a high level document that people can go to and it says live and it's not a PDF and it is a web page, we think that's a massive advantage to crypto businesses.
Oh, for sure. Like if you can have effectively is this policy live or not on the blockchain type thing, like how much of a better solution we saw. So we were speaking to a law firm and they managed to get, so when I didn't know this, but when you serve a notice on somebody from a legal perspective, there's a very prescribed way you have to do it, and it tends to be in person or like registered, like somebody has to, a courier, like physically take it to you, whatever. And this law firm managed to get a notice served via airdropping an NFT to someone's wallet address. But imagine again, and that's in an argument a negative thing because you have to find them and da-da. But imagine if I said to you, you're not in insurance at this point, I need to see you said to me I need to see your insurance document, and I just say, yeah, check my wallet. Yeah. And I send you and my wallet, because we're moving as well into a world of wallet addresses being able to become identities. And by identities, I don't necessarily mean exactly who we are, but I mean a decentralized identity where I don't know who you are, but I know you're legit based on all of this here, right? And so let's say my wallet address is, let's say it's a company thing, so let's say my wallet address is just Nephos. So I just say, yeah, just search on Etherscan or whatever for Nephos and you'll find us. And then lo and behold, you pull up my wallet, you can see my insurance, you can see, that I own the property that I'm my business is operating in, because you can see the land registry document. You can see all my vehicles are insured or whatever it may be. Do you know what I mean? Or you can see that I own those vehicles because the ownership documents on there. Imagine if your whole life or world or whatever could be on chain. In one sense, you could argue it's scary because it means that it's very visual. But at the same time, how easy would life be? How much easier would it be and how much less fraud and how much less claims would there be? Do you know what I mean?
Bringing trustlessness into the real world would have just remarkable consequences. And the people that would really benefit is my parents and also probably the youngest generation as well, because they're going to be, and I say this, I'm thinking about my nephews, they're coming into a world where everything's going at an incredible speed and they don't really have much of a point of reference as to where stuff came from or where it's going to. So things like AI and the consequences on my nephews is pretty stark. So things like trustlessness coming to protect the vulnerable, I think it's also going to protect those people that are going to come after us that don't have as much freedom or as much choice or as much privacy to actually come in a world that's more trusting and legitimate,
and to choose the option that they want, in a sense, right?
Exactly.
Not just go. We have grown up in a world where we have no choice. If we want to manage our finances, we manage them through centralized entities that are controlled by individuals or what have you, and we've had no choice. Right now, we are able to have more of a choice and decide, do you know what? Actually, I don't want my funds to be held on a centralized entity, blah, blah, blah. Our choice is becoming, and we've got a mixture of two. My hope is, because I've got 2 young children, my hope is that their choice is much more binary.
Yes.
They don't have to have both. They can have one or the other. They could have both if they wanted to. For us right now, we still kind of have to have both.
Yeah.
I hope we get to a place where, my eldest is 7, so, he's obviously 11 years away from, say, being 18. We could very easily be in a place in 11 years if we look back at what the last, don't even take the last 11 years, take the last 4 years, even since 2020. So yeah, that sort of, we could do a whole nother conversation about that specifically, but I think being able to produce, going back to the point we were talking about, being able to produce an online confirmation of who you are, what you are, the insurance you've got, all those bits and pieces, I think is fantastic. So yeah, good luck trying to build that.
I mean, the last part of that, as you were saying, kind of dealing with both, is someone, and pretty sure it's us, and I want it to be us, has to actually connect the bridge between DeFi and traditional insurance. So on-chain commercial insurance. And for example, those on-chain certificates, that's kind of enabling the on-chain, because now we can combine Lloyd's of London terms with underwriters, and on the certificate say the credit rating of Lloyd's comes with this portion of your insurance, but then for, let's say, if you need 10 million, you get the first 5 million at Lloyd's because all of your customers and your biggest clients say that you should have X amount of insurance, and they want it to be done through a really legitimate party like Lloyd's. But that's not to say that after that 5 million, the business doesn't have other risks that might total up to, let's say, 10 million total. But why should they have to pay the Lloyd's of London premium for a bunch of insurance that they only require by their own measure? No one else is requiring it. And why can't we take then does that additional 5 million, does it need to have a particular capital rating? Does it have to have a particular source? And very quickly we've come to a position where we are able to place commercial insurance alongside on-chain insurance in the same policy, or in the same, what we would call a tower of insurance. And that's pretty much unheard of. But being able to clearly show on-chain what it is and what it isn't is what allows us to compliantly do it. Because if we were trying to put these products together, some from regulated insurance, some from, and we're not even allowed to call it non-regulated insurance, you just can't call it insurance at all. And you have to make very clear to the client that it's not insurance, it's something else. But being able to be transparent about it allows us to combine these two things. If we weren't transparent, the client would be very confused, regulator would be very confused, the underwriter would be very confused, and it wouldn't get done. So we're at the point now where we're like, well, Lloyd's of London is great, but maybe that should specialize in what that does, and we can go elsewhere to get the best for our clients. And these on-chain platforms are the most susceptible to doing smart contract based or parameterized insurance, where we can be a bit more trustless and things are done way more quickly. And so that's the next stage that we're seeing now. It's really to the penny getting what the client needs exactly for their business in exactly the right circumstances. And getting to that hyper personalization, hyper bespoke insurance is only been enabled by blockchain and crypto, but it clearly is the stepping stone that we needed to get there. And without it, we may still be 10, 15, 20 years behind banking.
And that's probably a really good point to end on, a really positive kind of point. And I think for me, part of this is around, say with our industry, the legal industry, your profession, we're always very much seen in the traditional sense as these kind of slow, boring companies that don't have any innovation and whatever. And I love the fact that we can bring you guys on and demonstrate the innovation and the real kind of forward thinking nature that you guys have. So yeah, I'm really pleased that you guys could come on and talk about that, and I look forward to building our relationship further.
Yeah, we are very similar, and it's nice to kind of have the group we've got. So yeah,
Dan, where, if people want to get in touch, where can they find you guys?
Sure. You can find me and the rest of Superscript on LinkedIn. My name is Dan Ross. You can also find me on Twitter. It's OXDRIO, DRIO. And I've got a website where everything that we've spoken about, guides to how to deal with insurance brokers in Web3, everything Web3, crypto, blockchain, insurance is under danross.xyz.
Amazing. And we'll link all of those in the description as well so that you guys can find that. Thanks again, Dan, and really good to see you.
Thanks, Joe.
Cheers. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.